having the courage to speak up can go in a zillion different directions. I would say that the most likely ones are being too kind and hence not being specific enough, to being too harsh and not showing any emotions. Some of you may know that just recently I became part of a group of Pokemon players. Actually, I was invited by someone, and just recently he made me a moderator. Not just me, but someone else as well. Well, the other person is the total opposite of me. So whereas I actually got the nickname Letter Boy, which was meant for which was about 30 years ago, 25. I was still a lot younger, yes, which was because I had to teach a group of men who were back then, I think, in their 40s. So basically, the generation before me, sort of. And I was the first one who they actually accepted as explaining things to them and having them sort of be okay with a new sort of strategy, a new kind of framework. Well, ever since I have been about, well, I think frameworks and flowcharts. I like it when there's an overview and I can quickly see if I have to go left, right, up, and down. So for those who do not know, and I must assume that it applies to a lot of you, there's actually an entire strategy behind Pokemon Go, behind throwing the balls, which balls, what kind of points there are. I didn't know there was an entire system, but I do now. So at first I thought this is about paying Pokemon Go a lot of money, but actually they do stop you at some point, and then you have to be really clever. Well, fortunately for me, the group of people I was invited to, well, actually I was the first one to be invited, but the ones who joined were all friends of the one who invited me, and they have been doing this for years on end. And oh my God, the knowledge they have, a whole new world is opening up for me. Apart from that, I can ask them things and they answer me, and I'm like, whoa, the little kid inside of me is jumping for joy. And almost every day I will tell them that I'm so grateful to be part of this group. Having said so, I've become a moderator recently, and that has given me the opportunity to lay out, well, to share some rules, which actually I didn't come up with the rules, but I did repeat them even before I was a moderator. Because for me, when raids, yes, we do raids in Pokemon, when there are several raids at the same time, it becomes total chaos. So it's nice if there's one raid, there's one host who does the raid, then there are the attendees, there's a list of attendees, and then, we wait till everybody is done. So when the raid is done, you still have to catch the Pokemon, when we have one, of course, and then the next one follows, shows a picture of the one we are going to raid, etc., etc. And please be aware that when nowadays we have these little messages on the top of our screen, and when there's a picture involved, people are far more likely to react. And so we react with emojis on that picture, and when I see the emojis passing by, I'm like, oh, I'm missing something, I need to check this out. But it only works if I don't get invitations from like 3, 4, 5 people at the same time. And today I actually got on both accounts 2 invites each, so 4 in total. And I was like, now here's the thing. So the other moderator, well, actually there are 2, but the other one I talk a lot to, I totally love the guy. Well, actually, I do love all of them in the group, including the one who set it up. But well, for him, it's easier if I word it. And, being Dutch, I'm pretty straightforward. Then also, people say I have autism. I don't know, it's never been tested, but they could be right. It's been said by people who have autism themselves. And they actually said to me, didn't you know you've got it? Well, no, I've never been diagnosed, but it does explain why I want an overview and why I love flowcharts. So flowcharts are those little symbols, and they make you go in a certain direction. So sometimes there's a question with yes and no, but if you follow the flowchart and it's made correctly, then you always end up at a certain outcome, and that should be logical. So yeah, I can be very logical. As a matter of fact, once I got tested, they said, you have over 100% analytical outcomes. That's not possible. That was kind of funny, actually. Anyway, when I talk about courage, we talk about the courage to speak up and to find that balance between being nice and not being too harsh on anyone is kind of like a challenge. I mean, how do you get it across in a way that you're taken seriously? Because if you're too nice and people don't listen to you and you repeat yourself and they still don't listen, people are going to walk all over you. But when you're being too strict and there's no emotion involved and there are no compliments, of course, the opposite happens. Then people are like, I don't like you. I'm not going to talk to you. And they are bound to going to defend themselves. Now, the good thing in this group is that people stand up for one another. I totally love that in this group. But it did make me think about the whole perception of courage. So to take it to just a slightly different level, courage is also about opening up. What is it you want to share? So how do we say it? I'm looking for that word, and that's exactly what happens when I just want to get it out there, and then all of a sudden I draw a blank. So if you want to be very some people don't want to be too open because some things can really be hurtful. They come from a place of trauma or shame, and that makes it hard to say what they may want to say but don't dare saying, because they can be embarrassed, or like I said, it can be too hard to actually say it. So that also makes it hard to share something, and then so you may want to be courageous and get that one thing across, but by leaving out certain things, it becomes a little bit hard to understand what the other one is talking about. And that's why I said being specific, speaking up, it requires a number of skills. Well, it's the skill of communicating. That's the main thing. But also, like, how tactical do I need to be? Especially when we talk about the written word. I mean, there's no expression involved. So how do people know what you want to get across? And that's something that really has been, ever since we have started using email and text messages. There's a reason why we have all these emojis and GIFs, GIFs nowadays. It explains a little something about how we feel and what we want to get across. Because before we know it, because there is no emotion involved, it sounds too harsh. Anyway, for me, this being about the month of courage, I thought it was important to post a little something about this, because I know for a fact that posting something, especially guidelines, when you feel you cannot hurt anyone, is really hard to do. And I had to get used to it too. But 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I became a trainer. And ever since, I've been training people in several areas. And especially when I had started my practice over here, I realized that I was the one in charge, and I needed to tell people, do this, do that, or don't do this, or don't do that. I had to set the guidelines. And nowadays, as a coach, so I do a number of things. I coach, I counsel, I'm a therapist. But I like to say that I'm a coach because I don't usually go back in the past, but sometimes I will do it just to explain certain things. And yes, I'm used to doing certain techniques related to meditation to help people move forward. Having said so, as a coach, I need to challenge people too. I need to call them out on their BS if it happens. If they don't want to get to the core, then I need to say something about them. And I need them to actually go to that place that sometimes comes from hardship. And that's not always fun, but it does help. And when people finally realize, oh my God, this is where it's coming from, there's place to change things. There's place to replace it with better options they choose for, instead of having to deal with mindsets that were ingrained as a survival system when they were younger, when they were kids, because most of them are actually implemented between the years of 0 and 7, when we are not capable of rationalizing. But also when we experience something very traumatic, very emotional, then all of a sudden, there it is. And as easy as it's implemented, so hard it is to get it out of your system. So what I see going back and forth with my fellow moderator is that we talk about these things. And he says, I'm too kind. And then I'll tell him, well, I was that kind too, but I had to change, not just because I became a trainer, but I had to muster up the courage to ask people for help, literally for help. So whereas I didn't dare to when I was younger, so when I was at elementary school, I was going for a swim certificate, a diploma, and this was the one where when you dive under the water and you go through a circle. But back then I was wearing glasses. I hadn't been wearing glasses for a long time, but they were strong, so I didn't see much. I couldn't recognize the faces of the people. And being utmost shy, yes, I was utmost shy. I sort of shut down when things were said to me, and I didn't really pick up on that. And since my parents weren't there and I didn't know where to go to, remember, I couldn't see anything. I just stopped in my tracks, and, no one ever came to me and said, hey, nice, just continue on and get that certificate because you earned it. Well, nowadays, I'm, of course, a lot older, and having dealt with not being able to walk for the last 10 years, I had to ask people for assistance. Now, of course, I walk a lot better than I did 10 years ago. 2 surgeries have really helped me. And just recently, I had an MRI just to see what is actually happening elsewhere in my left leg. So I'm still dealing with the results of tripping on the brick which happened end of July. Yeah, I think it was end of July 2014. And well, I can only say that it's me asking people, sometimes pleading. I'll just say it the way it is. I've been pleading too. But when you do it over and over and more often, then at some point that switches, the pleading stops and it becomes more demanding. And then we get back to the whole communication part. And how do you ask people certain things? So when it comes to courage, when it comes to asking people, I hardly ever lack the courage. I have to say, though, that I remember one time that I was in Chicago and I was standing on the one end of the street and some actor together with Lucci was standing on the other end. I was like, I want to run over and say, I want a picture with you. And I wanted to approach Lucci, the guy that I'd spoken to a million times, and I was like, I can't do it. I cannot do this. So I got pushed in the back. Go there, ask it. And I was like, no, I can't do it. So people who actually see me in those situations, they actually know that I can be quite humble in those cases, because I know that I cannot take things for granted at all. So I can be very powerful, but I can also still be the little girl who's little, I need to ask, I want to ask. And then there's everything in between. I know I want to ask, I know I need to ask, because if I don't, I'm going to regret it. Or, I'm literally stuck. And I guess that depending on the urgency, I might react differently. So getting back to the beginning of what I said, I've learned that it's better to just be specific with not too many words. As someone says, words are golden. Well, the thing is, I would use way too many words. So when I'm writing something, I usually have to diminish it again. Getting back from 5 pages to 2 pages, from 5 paragraphs to 2 or 3. And the first thing that I actually learned was to take the emotion out. Yes, so I'm talking about people are not capable of seeing emotions. And now I'm also talking about, but on the other hand, I've learned to take them out. Anyway, I've also learned to add those emojis so people can actually see, like, hey, don't take it too seriously. I'm not angry with you. I'm just trying to get across so we understand one another. Anyway, that's my take on courage for today. So, courage related to speaking up and how to do it best. And I can tell you, but that's from my experience, it has taken me a long time to get where I am right now. And, it's nice to actually be a role model for other people so they can see that it's okay that they speak up. Of course, always with respect. And I've noticed that some people are afraid that when I speak on behalf of someone, that means that I'm going against the other one and that I'm going to be rude and going to make them feel small. That's not the case. I believe in a balance. I believe in a solution between two parties or how many parties are involved. So again, respect, balance, and that also applies to how we want to get across clarity versus showing some form of emotion and especially support. So people feel that they're not attacked, but they are being understood. Well, if you are dealing with some sort of whatever it is you want to get across and you don't know how to do it and you need to learn to speak up and speak out, then, find me and I can help you. That's why I coach people and do the group coaching calls. So hit me up and say, hey, Lexi, I can use some help. And if you do, then I'll be the first one to reach out to you and do a free coaching session. Anyway, let me know. What is it that you would like to improve on your end when it comes to communication, speaking up, and courage? Do you want to see more videos about courage? Then go there, click there, and you'll be led to other videos regarding courage.